The next step in learning how to compose melodies is to study the different types of tones present in melodies. To do this, we will need to begin looking at melody as it relates to harmony. Although this course is dealing primarily with the composition of rhythm and melody, it is impossible to study melody fully without briefly looking at harmony. One of the most fundamental distinctions of tones present in melody is the distinction between chord tones and non-chord tones. Often a melody or part of a melody is formed directly from the pitches of a chord. We call these pitches chord tones. Let's look at an example. All of the pitches used in the following example come from the C major chord, C, E, and G. We would call each of these pitches chord tones because they are all from the same chord. C is a chord tone, E is a chord tone, and G is a chord tone. Any other pitch would not belong to the C chord and would therefore be called a non-chord tone. Let's look at another example. This little section of a melody is formed from two different chords. The pitches in the first measure, when taken together, form an F major chord in second inversion. The pitches in the second measure, when taken together, form a B flat major chord in root position. Here is an example of a melodic line that includes both chord tones and non-chord tones. How can we distinguish between chord tones and non-chord tones? The best way is to look at all the pitches in the melodic line and see if any particular chord is suggested or implied. In this example, we can see an implied F chord, F, A, and C. The pitch G does not fit with the other pitches. It cannot be combined with any of the other pitches to form a chord. Thus, F, A, and C are chord tones, and G is a non-chord tone. We will study non-chord tones in more depth in the next few lessons. Another way to distinguish between chord tones and non-chord tones is to simply look at the left hand of a piece of music, and often you will find the entire chord right there. Of course, this only works if you're playing piano music. If you play most any other instrument, you will need to be able to distinguish between chord tones and non-chord tones by looking only at the melody. Piano players should try to acquire this skill as well. Let's look at one more example before moving on to your lesson assignments. If we take all the pitches in this example, what chords can we make? B flat, D, and F taken together would form the B flat major chord. D, F, and A taken together would form the D minor chord. So which chord is the melody formed from? There are a couple of clues that will help us determine the answer. The pitches D, F, and A occur more often than the pitch B flat, which only occurs once. The pitch D falls on the downbeat, the first beat or the strong beat of the second measure. The D minor chord is outlined perfectly in the first three notes of the second measure and again in the last three notes. We can also tell from listening to the clip that the sound is definitely minor, not major. We can therefore safely conclude that this melody is formed from the D minor chord. This means that the pitches D, F, and A are the chord tones, and the pitch B flat is a non-chord tone. Again, we will study non-chord tones in more depth in the next few lessons.